Election Commission's database is so secure that nobody can claim and nobody can prove that they have any digital electoral roll data anywhere.
The election commission using Aadhaar itself is not a very big problem, but the issue is that Aadhaar is being linked to pretty much everything.
Today we're discussing India's 12 favorite digits, the Aadhaar, and how the most recent act in Parliament, the Election Laws Amendment Act, which tries to link the Aadhaar to your electoral rolls or voter IDs, has effects on both the logistics of conducting elections in India, which is no mean feat, as well as the ethics of the fairness and the freeness of said elections. How do you see the rationale behind linking the Aadhaar to your electoral rolls or voter IDs from an election commission of India's point of view?
Actually, we thought about it in 2015 and we started voluntary linking of Aadhaar with electoral roll. And to our surprise, response from voters was enormous. In fact, in a short span of about 4 months, 300 million voters came forward and linked their Aadhaar with the voter ID or electoral roll.
The election commission using Aadhaar itself is not a very big problem, but the issue is that Aadhaar is being linked to pretty much everything. Linking it to an ID like Aadhaar that has essentially been passed as a money bill and is supposed to be a welfare measure gets linked to all the government schemes does create potential that at a later date people could be excluded from being beneficiaries for government schemes because they did not vote for a political party. Things like that sound absurd, but now we have actual examples of these things happening.
Two very important features of Aadhaar are biometric recognition, which is foolproof. So no two persons can have same biometric credentials. Second thing is it is given to all those people who are residing in that place where they are registered. Our mobile people who get transferred from one place to other, they always forget to get their names deleted from the place they are leaving. That used to cause a lot of duplicates. Somewhere like in Madhya Pradesh election in 2018, Election Commission used deduplication software, photo recognition software, all tools available to Election Commission. And even after doing that kind of exercise, from 6 million, Election Commission could zero in to delete 57 lakhs and 3 lakhs still remained when we went to the polls. Therefore, Election Commission considered it necessary that in terms of our Honorable Supreme Court's order, we should have an amendment in the law to enable us to continue our previous exercise, which was abandoned or stayed in 2015. And that's why this amendment came through. So I feel that this is going to help Election Commission and ensure purity of our elections in a big way.
Right. What are some of the trade-offs that voters could be looking at?
So the duplication problem that the election commission faces is actually a very huge one. If you look at 2018, what happened in Andhra and Telangana, in an experiment, they linked 55 lakh Aadhaar database to the electoral roll and 55 lakh names were deleted. Out of these 55 lakhs, a lot of organizations have listed about 30 lakh people which were basically falsely deleted from the voter roll. The exercise was later stopped, but people were disenfranchised. And there is a real example of this happening.
I don't think there is any fear of disenfranchisement of any fear of anybody being stopped from voting because Aadhaar was not matching. Because right now there is no technology, and even if this technology comes, it will be with the agreement of all political parties that they have confidence in it, and there will be nobody who will be thrown out and denied voting.
So a safeguard to address this does need to be built in. You can't exactly assume that it will not happen again, especially when there is political push to get names deleted in a certain section. Because after Aadhaar linking, political parties can very easily tell which people are likely to vote for them and which are not.
Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana. I was the CEC and I constituted 24 teams that anybody challenging our electoral roll data come with your data, that these are the numbers who have been disenfranchised, These teams are there, they will take you personally, verify physically, and if even one is found, then election commission can be held accountable and can be taken to task. These 24 teams worked for a week. Not a single person was found disenfranchised. It is not said by election commission or the law or anybody that if your Aadhaar data doesn't match, you will be denied voting. It says that there are 13 other documents issued by the government. You should bring one or two of them. In case Aadhaar data doesn't match, you can prove your identity by giving that supporting government ID proof. In fact, it is going to facilitate in future voting by very poor migrant workers. So Election Commission was considering that in case biometric identification is available of these migrant workers, we can ensure that wherever they are working, whichever state they are working, Election Commission can make arrangements for their identification and their voting from there, which will really facilitate such 70 to 80 million poor voters.
The courts in 2018 have seen the government depose that it doesn't know about the authenticity of Aadhaar. There is the case of duplicity. What about some of these logistical issues, such as errors in Aadhaar identification?
Every time Sir mentions this possibility of remote voting, it actually really scares me. If you look at organizations like Rethink Aadhaar and the evaluation of the Aadhaar database itself, the self-reported discrepancy in the Aadhaar database is 1.5 times higher than that for the electoral roll data right now. And if you see how many of the Aadhaar enrolled people have biometric details in there versus how many have just garbage data as biometric, then a lot of people have estimated that 15 to 20% of the Aadhaar database is actually false and fake. Even though we keep claiming Aadhaar is very secure, the amount of Aadhaar-enabled payment system, AEPS scams that are happening in the country right now, and the amount of money that people are losing because of payments being authorized through AEPS is just so high right now.
Because of those digital frauds, digital transactions are not banned, not stopped, not scrapped. Because we know that we have to learn to live with it. We have to ensure that criminals are caught, they are taken to task, and law takes its own course.
The Election Commission using Aadhaar makes absolute sense. What the Election Commission says it will do through deduplication, through allowing people to enroll who are migrants right now, for making it easier for them to get their names on the voter roll, it makes absolute sense. The problem comes in when the same universal identifier is used for beneficiaries of government schemes, when it is used for tracking people's caste and socioeconomic status and other data points, and when this common identifier is so easily accessible in the private domain, and the Election Commission itself doesn't have a great track record of protecting data. I, as a private citizen who's worked on election campaigns, the kind of data I have access to is actually scary. And the kind of data that I can map, people's electricity bills are online, you can link that to people's voter rolls. Phone numbers are not considered private data, so telecom companies end up selling bulk mobile user data to political parties. Just because of this issue, which is separate from what the Election Commission faces. This is a separate data protection issue. But because of this, using Aadhaar in electoral rolls becomes a lot more complex, even though it serves the Election Commission's purpose really well.
As regards big data firms utilizing, these kinds of links and other databases, that is a real threat world over, not at our place, and it is without even linking with electoral roll data. It is happening all over, and Election Commission is seized of this, and they will be developing obstacles.
Digitized electoral rolls with people's phone numbers leaked are available on the grey market right now. And this is coming from the Election Commission, it is available. There have been FIRs filed on this matter itself. So how do you ensure such data does not leak out of the Election Commission?
Election Commission's database is so secure that nobody can claim and nobody can prove that they have any digital electoral roll data anywhere. When political parties get hard copies of electoral rolls, they can put 100 data entry operators, create a digital electoral roll, get mobile phones, and then they can circulate in the garb of electoral roll, which is not really electoral roll of the Election Commission. They spend millions of rupees in transcribing and doing all that you cannot stop. And that will happen because Election Commission's jurisdiction is limited. And therefore, big data firms will definitely have markets. They will always try and sell some products like this, and they may succeed.
And to wrap things up, how can we expect the Election Laws Amendment of 2021 to affect the way political parties go about electioneering?
Linking with Aadhaar is not going to make our data vulnerable. There is absolutely no issue on that. Aadhaar will be used only as an alternative for verification of identity. That's a simple thing, nothing more. So it is not going to make our data or polling or voting vulnerable in any manner.
The issue, I would say, for political parties is that a lot of parties in a position to collect data will be very happy with this entire setup. But it will create more of an unlevel playing field when it comes to elections in the country, where more resources will go into essentially mapping voters, analyzing who's voting for a political party and who's not. So whichever party spends more money has an advantage in a lot of different ways. This will just be one of those ways too. When you go to an election at a booth level, there are 800 to 1200 voters, and political parties very actively now use data analytics techniques to map how these 800 to 1000 people have voted in the past election. So you get to have a very good idea of what areas and what people are voting for you versus what people are not voting for you. No one's questioning the integrity of Indian elections. We have excellent elections, but safeguards need to be discussed whenever a major change is happening in the electoral process. And the step has already been taken. Aadhaar was passed as a money bill initially for just government subsidies. Now it's come to this. This bill has been passed in 2 days, as you rightly mentioned. So these debates and discussions have not taken place yet. Claiming that, okay, we are going to get so many people enrolled, it's going to make life so much better is excellent. But these need to be probed more in depth than just claims.